Many people think that once a church closes its doors on a Sunday evening, they won't open again until the following Sunday morning. In our case, they would be wrong. Sunday services at Bushy Baptist Church and its daughter church, the church at Bushy Meads, are the focus of a week of varied activities happening in the church buildings themselves and in people's homes. BBC Live is an inside view of what happens at the two churches. Some of what you see may surprise you. Both the playgroup and mums and toddlers, based at Bushy Baptist Church, are well known in the local community. In fact, the playgroup has a waiting list that reflects its popularity. Playgroup gives preschool children an opportunity to develop together through play and teaching, while mums and toddlers brings welcome companionship and relaxation for mothers, while their children play in a safe environment. We're used to children playing in church, but this stuff isn't mums and toddlers. Oxy Wanderers are a local football club linked with the church. They use the church premises for training on a Thursday evening. A badminton club linked with the Bushy Meads church plays regularly on a Friday night. This is open to anyone who'd like to come along. Ladies Keep Fit runs regularly on Wednesdays at the church itself.
I had a show with Bishop on Saturday. It was terrible. Oh, another one. I was cooking Turn the House on Saturday, and so the parlour went to one Saturday.
The Monday Club is a group that runs for members of the community with a special need. Although many of this club come to other events, here we can take time to go at their pace.
I don't know what number, and 2 weeks later, I can't give Boss's telephone number.
Well, I prefer this one because it's 11 till 2.
Yeah, nice.
By the time I come back, I can do anything I want. But by the time we're finished there, we need tea time. But no, I can just go upstairs and look at telly, or go out and into the pub or anywhere like that. You know.
Deacons is a coffee bar for older teenagers, but our midweek youth activities cover all the ages from 7s upwards. Here we see the 8-11 club making some work for our caretakers. At the end of the evening, there is a brief pause for thought in tea time. Many of these children come on Sunday mornings to our Sunday school, otherwise known as PowerPoint.
Oh dear, I've got no friends. My friends haven't turned up. Well, the Bible, Jesus told a parable about a great feast. He said something that's very rich prepared this wonderful feast for all his friends. And he
mentioned speaking about depression, and last week we just touched on it, and the various sort of symptoms and reasons.
House groups meet on weekday evenings in the homes of church members to study and discuss aspects of the Christian faith. Because the groups are small, informal and relaxed, discussions can take place that can't usually happen in a church service. Those who go to house groups find that regularly being with a small number of people means that close friendships develop between them, and that there is a real feeling of mutual support and encouragement.
It's like a blackness, and it's not due to circumstances. So, just for a few.
The church at Bushy Meads is the daughter church of Bushey Baptist and stands as living proof that the church isn't made up of a building, but rather the people who meet in it. The church meets on a Sunday morning in a sixth form common room of the Bushy Meads School and has been running for 3 years now in an area where previously there were no churches. Even more unusual is the fact that presently the church doesn't have a full-time minister, but is run and led by its own congregation. Chris Fairwood, Stuart Alderman and Peter Turner are all regular worshippers at one of the Bushy churches. They told us something of their experience of the Christian faith and life. Chris is a regular worshipper at Bushy Meads Church, together with her husband and 2 children.
Yes, it's not a very dramatic conversion. Both my parents are Christians, and of course they took us along to church when we were children. And I can remember clearly when I was about 7 or 8, somebody said to me, "We're all sinners." And I thought, well, I don't do anything wrong. But as I thought about it, I thought, I've got a terrible temper. I'm always sort of shouting at my sisters, and I thought, well, yes, I am a sinner. I do things that are wrong. And I sort of got down on my knees and just said, "I'm sorry, Lord, just forgive me for that, and I do love you, and I want to become a Christian." And that happened when I was about 7 or 8. Yes, when I was 17, because my dad was in the RAF, my parents went abroad, and I was in the middle of my A-levels, so I stayed at home in England with a family. And I think it was then that I really had to stand on my own and realise that being a Christian wasn't just a family thing. I had to be a Christian for myself. And I remember, I think it was a verse in Proverbs that spoke to me and said, I think it was, "The Lord will be your confidence." And I thought, yes, the Lord's got to be my confidence. It's no good what my parents think, it's what I think that matters. It's not easy being a Christian, I must say that to start off with, and people often think that being a Christian is a prop. But it certainly isn't an easy thing, but I think the great thing is to know that God's in charge of your life, that your future's in somebody's hands, because people always want to know what's going to happen in the future. And even though we don't know what's going to happen, we know that God's in control, and we can pray about things. And, I still worry about things, but you try not to worry, because you know that God's taking charge of things, and leave them with Him. And also it's great to have Christian friends. There are times when we've had problems, and you can talk to people and know that, they'll be there to help you and back you up in prayer.
Stuart Alderman is a successful businessman running his own company, Ramblers UK.
Well, I came from a moderately Christian family, and we in fact lived in Stanmore during the war, and I think we drifted along as many Christian families do, of going to church on Sunday, and by Sunday afternoon having sort of forgotten all about it, and the following Sunday morning you put your halo back on and go back to church. And eventually we moved away after the war, and it came about that eventually one day the Queen writes and says, well, the army wants you, and I went off to the army and really generally forgot about God for many years. And a long time after that, 20 years after that, by a sort of casual arrangement, I gave an Australian girl, a young Australian nurse, a lift from the Lake District to London. And being Australian, of course, you don't come on the direct route. You come through the middle of England. I think we even came via Fakenham. And somewhere around Newmarket on this journey, this girl has not stopped talking the whole time. Somewhere around Newmarket, she said to me, "Stuart, what's your relationship with the Lord?" And I said, "Well, we just agree not to bother each other." And she looked rather sort of shocked and said, "Well, you might have agreed that, but he's not agreed that. He's always had his hand closely on you." And for the next couple of hours, as we drove down to Muswell Hill where she was staying, she talked so beautifully about her relationship with the Lord and how important he was in her life and how she put her trust in him and how he led her and guided her. And this was all strange to me. And, I wasn't sure whether it was something to be taken in by or whether this was a bit cranky. And anyway, we got to Muswell Hill and it was pretty late by the time we got there. But she said, "Come in and have a coffee and meet the family I'm staying with." And they were a lovely family and they welcomed me in. And it must have been like, by the time we stopped talking, it must have been nearer sort of 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I left. And she insisted on praying for me. I mean, that was quite a shock. And anyway, I drove back to Bushy, and the following day, late morning, this girl walks into my office, which in those days was in Old Bond Street. She turns up there carrying a package, and she says, "Stuart, I've brought you a Bible so that you can move on in your relationship with the Lord." This was quite something. And it tells you in the Bible that this relationship with him is open to anyone who wishes to have this relationship. And if you don't want to have the relationship, you don't have to have it. You make the decision. He's given you a free will to decide for yourself. But if you want this relation with him, it's incredibly simple. It just sounds daft. And when I eventually came back to Bushy, I just walked into the Baptist church in Bushy, the one up from the Arches. And it's one of those churches that's been divided in two, split in two, with an upstairs and a downstairs. And the church is upstairs. And first it was the welcome there, which I think had rather bowled me over. And I walked up this sort of narrow staircase into the church, feeling rather pleased and happy. And I walked into the church and it was quite amazing. I just stood there and I thought, I'm home. This is it. It was an absolute remarkable feeling of tranquility that came over me, that something made me realise that I'd reached what I needed to reach. I'd got to a goal. It wasn't something I'd actually measured myself, but I'd arrived home. It was beautiful.
Peter Turner is a professional camera operator working on films including Highlander and The Killing Fields.
One thing led to another, and I found myself in the proper cinematography industry, and I learnt a lot. I met lots of famous people. I earned lots of money. Wealth was no problem. I had property. I had nice cars, and everyone thought I was Lucky Jim. But deep down I was not satisfied. I was not happy. And I found myself slowly going down a cul-de-sac which grew darker and darker. And I went in search of pleasure. I hit some of the very low notes that people can hit in their lifetime through alcohol and drugs. And I can tell you this in all sincerity, I'm not ashamed of what I did, because God through it taught me a lot of things, and I am now in a position to help people. And when people tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, I say I have the right to speak, because I have experienced many things. God has enabled me to experience things so I can help people. So I'm not ashamed. Sometimes it's a sad thing, but because we are rebellious by nature, we have to let things take its course. And sometimes God, as he does with nations, will take the brakes off an individual. He will say, all right, if this is what you want, I'll take the brakes off for you so that you gather speed and you'll get to your destination as quick as possible. And that's what he did with me, because that's what I said to God in my rebellion. I want to be as rich as possible. I want to have lots of friends. I want to have nice property. I want to have lovely holidays. I want to work hard, and I just basically want to do what I want to do. That's the rebellion. That's most people live under that rebellion. And God, in his love and his mercy, and it takes love to step back and allow someone to do that. And it must have been very painful for God to watch me do that. It must have hurt him. I mean, it's like with a child, allowing a child to do something because it must learn a lesson. Eventually that child will come to you and say, I can't do it without your help. And that's, the way I was. But materialism, I mean, in this country, as in Japan, their God, their number one God is money. Now, money eventually will let you down. As we've seen with stock market crashes, we've seen, well, you can see it everywhere in the world, what happens when their wealth goes. Life has no meaning. Most people, will go out and buy, with their last couple of pounds, a gun to blow their brains out. That's what wealth does to you. And I think sometimes God allows it and says, I'm sorry, but if this is what you want to do, I will allow it to happen to you, because I love you. I'm not going to stop you. This is what you want. And I personally, from a personal point of view, that's what he did with me. And it was then that my family, who are my sisters who are Christians, they just recommended that I should go and hear Billy Graham. And Billy Graham was the last person really that I wanted to hear, because for years and years I used to, what's the better word in the film industry, to slag somebody off, which means being completely detrimental to their character. And I just thought he was false. And yet God, he has a sense of humour, and he used Billy Graham and his Mission 89 to bring me to my knees and to bring me to an understanding that God was real, that he loved me, that he cared for me, and that he was waiting for me. And the story of the prodigal son in Luke is so real to me, because that is the story of a father who waits for a son to come back. And I say to people who say to me, what about other religions? Don't they have something? Why is it that Christianity is right? Why is it that Jesus is right? I basically say to them, you show me another religion that has the story of the prodigal son, and I might consider reading about that religion. But I've yet to come across a religion, Buddhism, Islam, whatever, Shintoism, that has that wonderful story of forgiveness and love. There isn't. It's only in the Bible, because there is only one God. And I've discovered that there is only one God who loves. He loves everybody. And he loved me so much so that he has changed my life completely.
Christ is in you, the hope of Christ.